All right, guys, welcome back to the Five Guys podcast. This is actually our second time filming our intro. We got too excited and we jumped right into speaking and didn't hit record on our microphones. So this is our second intro. We have
Jonathan,
Rob,
and Hav. We have 3/5 of the members. A couple guys had to work and
personal time off.
definitely.
Personal time off.
they use that VTO.
For you Amazonians, who knows what that is?
Yeah, so we'll kind of jump right into it. We have Rob. He's never. Well, you actually had a little guest appearance on the last
Small
one,
clip last
but
one.
this is his official podcast or official like
Introduction in
intro.
a way.
So yeah, let's go ahead and jump in right into it and go ahead and give us a little elevator pitch about yourself, and we'll go from there.
So I am Rob. Some of you may know me as RobX Films. That's my handle. Actually, completely just random off the start. Not random. I've been starting to get noticed at gyms and stuff like that. Of like, oh, you do that video work at that gym and stuff like that. So that's kind of pretty cool. It's kind of it's picking up some attraction. There we go. But yeah, I'm Rob. I go around. I film people. I film things. That's actually my Instagram bio. It's kind of funny. I just film things. But yeah, I film things. I record these two beautiful gentlemen at the gym, and Joel, and once in a blue moon, Daniel. I think I've recorded Daniel maybe once or twice.
I think so, yeah.
But no, yeah, I film things. I got into cinematography, videography. Photography is kind of falling off because I'm enjoying more video work. There's always, that's a bunch of nerd stuff about photography and video work. Of like, oh, you're a videographer. Oh, you're a photographer. I'm classifying myself more as a videographer. My camera doesn't have the viewfinder. It's a Sony FX3 for anybody who's curious. But yeah, I'm the person behind the camera the last, 3 pods?
The last 3
Yeah,
parts.
3, this is the fourth
So
episode.
this is episode 4.
Episode 4. 4 out of 40 so far. And then more to come. Nah. But yeah, I do video work with the podcast. I record for gyms. I'm always trying to expand clientele in a way. One thing I will say is I do not like taking baby photos, family photos, stuff like that, because I quit my 9-to-5 job to kind of chase things that make me happy. And genuinely, babies and family photos don't make me happy in that way.
I feel like that's really tough because you have, the babies crying and then trying to get them in the right position, and sometimes it's going to be off. And I understand that for sure.
Definitely that part. Did you have anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you how long you've been doing this for.
Officially like a year. Like probably like where I could say, I started about a year ago. That's when I started taking things seriously. But before that, it was always just like a hobby here and there. I would just do random stuff like my dogs, like anybody else, dogs, family members, friends, whatever the case is. And then over time, it just kind of picked up gradually. Started off high school, was it fisheye lens on the iPod, and then a GoPro, and then I bought a Canon, did some Sorry, I saw the camera flicker. Did some photography with the Canon. Then eventually got a Sony FX3 because I like video first. But I also dabble with photography, but that's falling off, like I said. But yeah, and now I'm doing podcasts, gym videos, edits, stuff like that here and there. Mm-hmm. But it's been a span of like 5 years, 6 years, 7, 8.
Nice.
A long time.
So for all the people that, like this cinematography stuff, what do you prefer? Canon or is it Canon, Nikon?
Sony top notch for anything
Sony
video
all the way
based.
for
Yeah.
video?
ISO 12,800 I think is low light setting. A lot of cinematography happens at night, from what I've seen in a way. But at the end of the day, it's all preference based on brand as well. But me, Sony, I did start off with Canon, and honestly, I'll be a little bit vulnerable here for anybody who's out there thinking about getting into any sort of cameras. I bought a Canon specifically because the person I looked up to, which was Peter McKinnon, and I still look up to him, but he was a Canon shooter. Like, he did photography, stuff like that. And I bought a Canon out of pure influence of him having a Canon. But at the end of the day, he was more of a photographer. He does really great video work. But at the end of the day, I was more of a videographer. I found out during that times I was kind of finding out like
You're
what
just dabbling into
yeah. Just getting into it, and then over time I was like, I was real with myself. I was like, I bought a Canon out of pure influence for my first expensive camera. It was like $1,700 roughly around there. Then the lens and all that stuff like that.
Definitely adds up.
Yeah, no, glass camera stuff is expensive. It's just like any other hobby. If you get into building cars, that's expensive.
Dude, snowboarding is
Yeah.
expensive.
Snowboarding
Buying
is
the board,
expensive.
buying
The boots.
the bindings, the gear. I'm like, man, the helmet.
Adds
I paid like $200 for my gloves. I'm like, oh my god.
Yikes.
But I mean,
Investments. They're
Investments.
investments.
Yeah.
Investments for fun.
Good
Definitely
quality
that.
lasts a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
that's funny. We said like this.
No, yeah,
We're
yeah.
like in sync. Let's get into how we kind of. It's funny how we kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't want to say rekindled.
Bumped
but-
into each other again.
Right.
There
right.
we go. Bumped into each other.
Do you want to
again.
kind of tell that story?
Yeah. So I recently switched gyms to the gym these two beautiful gentlemen go to.
What is that gym?
Valley Fitness.
Valley Fitness.
Valley.
Shout out Valley.
Really beautiful gym.
It's awesome.
Aesthetics.
Prime.
But yeah, so start from the very beginning. I met John first actually because he asked me to spot him on a three plate bench.
And now he's benching that for like
He's repping it.
5.
Yep. Trying.
10, I think. No. And then I saw Javi, or Hav, I should say, because I knew him. I knew of him in middle school as Javi, and then I met him as Hav at the gym. But in middle school, I used to look up to Javi because he was Javi. When I say Javi, I'm referring to younger Javi when we were kids, like 12, and all that stuff like that. I was in 7th grade, he was 8th grade, so he was always a year above me. I used to look up to him. I was like a skinny fat kid, like chunky, didn't have any like muscle, no sports, no nothing. Still to this day, kind of like that. But I used to look at Hav when he was a kid, and I was like, damn, I'm trying to be like him. Because I remember all the girls were always, oh my God, it's him. It's all. I was like, man, I want that, So, as a kid, I used to look up to him and stuff like that. Even though he didn't know of me, again, we just crossed paths and stuff like that. Went to the same high school, Lincoln High School, stuff like that.
And it's funny how we like never really had a conversation in high school either.
Never.
Yeah,
never.
and it's just I know exactly where we were at too. We were
By the tricep push down the calves machines.
yes, we were like the dip thing is out,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
I think I was doing dips maybe, and you were
I was doing calves.
calves. Yeah.
Yep.
And it was you that started the combo and was like, "Did you go to Commodore?"
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah.
it's funny because when I think about that, I knew you went, but that was just a conversation started,
Right,
right? Because
right.
I used to look up to you, so like it definitely it stuck with me. And it's funny because when I knew that Hav goes here, that's pretty cool. I'm starting to see some people that I used to go to because I used to go to a different gym out in Lathrop, in that area. And then I switched. I was like, I'm switching to like my hometown. I'm gonna see some people probably from high school or whatever the case is, and whatnot, which is expecting. It's the hometown. And then I saw you, and I was like, oh, damn, I should say hi to him. Because part of me as a person is like to grow out of my comfort zone. I used to look up to him. Never talked to him before in my life, though. It's like, you know what, I'm going to go, talk to him. I started the conversation. Hey, did you go to school? And all that stuff like that. And we did. And that was kind of it. It was a quick, real conversation. But before that, I was talking to my barber, Manny. Manny the Barber, 209. Shoot him a follow. Does real great hair. Leave your guys' barbers and go to him. But I was talking to Manny because he was like, I brought like, do you remember a Javi from Commodore? It was like, he was a soccer player, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah. I was like, bro, he goes to the gym, dude. I just brought it up and I was like, I'm gonna talk to him, mentally thinking. And the next thing we're doing podcasts together.
Insane.
Yeah,
Insane. And it's funny because you say, when you were younger, you used to look up to me.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking up to this guy because I'm interested in all of this camera work that he does. And I think everything that you're putting out there is just really, to me, it's like top tier. So I'm
I
like,
appreciate you.
man, I want to be like this guy with all his cinematography stuff. But it's crazy. It's like, I guess you could almost say it's like the string theory.
The string theory. I've
How
heard
it's
my
like we've
girlfriend
always
talk
been
about
around each other and whatnot.
that.
But
We
then
never
found-
conversated until the
Until
gym
now,
happened.
yeah, and-
26 years later.
And it's funny, yeah. It's just crazy how everything kind of just connects.
Yeah, that part right there. It's really a small world when you think about it. Like I still bump into people from like my old school, high school, middle school, stuff like that. And that way, next thing you know, one day I bumped into you and I don't even know it. Watch.
Yep, exactly. And I think it's actually pretty funny because Javi was actually the person I looked up to and was trying to compete
remember
with
this.
without meeting
Yeah.
him. And we
Back at
actually,
In Shape.
yeah, back at In
dude.
Shape.
And
we-
I used to see that. I used to think about the same thing about this guy. I'm like, oh dang, this guy's freaking strong. What the heck?
Yeah.
And I think you actually worked out with my brother one time, and he's like, oh, I worked out with this guy John, and I'm like, who's this guy? And then I kind of knew who you were, and I would see you at the gym, and I'm like, I gotta be stronger than this guy.
and then one day I covered for a manager and went to the bank and I was like, Javi. And then I would see you like almost every day.
Yeah,
and
you used to go to Intro? I'm like, yeah, dude, yeah, I remember you. Yeah. That was crazy.
His sweater is covering it, but he has that Superman bod for sure. So,
Bro,
shout out to the
no,
boy.
his aesthetics and strength, he could bench 3 plates. I mean, both. I look up to both these guys right now because I'm still trying to catch up. I did a dirty bulk. Don't do it. Everybody does a dirty bulk, but it mentally destroys you. A dirty bulk. I lost everything that I had that I was proud of. And it's still there, but dirty bulks mentally kind of mess with you. But I genuinely, both these guys, Superman bodies, 100%. I look at both you guys
Appreciate
equally. Like, there's just aesthetics is there, strength's there. Trying to be like you guys.
Dude, and no, you're definitely on the come up too, though. I mean, dude, you beat us on the forearm challenge.
That's because the camera. Where is that thing now?
I don't know. It's usually around here somewhere.
It's right there, but no.
Yeah, it's right there. But yeah, and then I had asked Rob to spot me, and then I think like there's a lot of videos about how gym bros become gym bros, and it starts off with and then it's like, oh, what's up, dude? Second day 3, what up, brother?
Yeah.
And then one thing just led to another, and I would see Rob more frequently, and I knew that he was recording videos and creating media for some of our friends, and he was just like, bro, we should record a session one time. And I was like, all right, sick. So that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone because I'm not very photogenic. I am really shy behind the camera, actually.
You have a great smile.
No, thank you.
You have a great smile, too.
But really it was like, hyped us up. And now we're just like recording content, more frequently. But if you haven't seen his stuff, you should definitely check out the Five Guys Instagram page, but also our personal pages too, because we do be posting a lot of his work. So shout out Rob X Films.
I appreciate you.
And it's really, I think this whole thing is really because of this guy. I mean, he's the one that kind of, hey, let's get together and let's do this. We all have, similar mindsets. Let's put our minds together and try to come up with something and see where it goes. And that's what we're doing. And shout out to this guy for, putting it all together.
Yeah, the orchestrator.
Well, it's true, though. It's like I see a group of, sounds like the Avengers damn intro or whatever, a group of remarkable people. No, but I see like five guys. That's why, if you guys, again, it's Fuel Your Vision. It's 5 guys in that way. Not the burger spot. Maybe one day we'll sponsor us some burgers, dirty bulks again. No, no, but like genuinely, I see everybody's mindset in that way, and that's something I think that's built into me from my previous careers of leadership. Is like when I see other leaders, what happens when you put all those leaders together in one room? What can they build together? Like if it's a podcast, and who knows where this podcast can take us. At the end of the day, it's how bad do we want it, and that's something that I always talk to you about. I was like, well, how bad do you want it? Are you genuinely making sacrifices and stuff like that? Like again, I guess use me as an example. It's like how I want to improve my camera work a lot, and I've been recording you guys more frequently. I've been editing a lot. I've been learning so much recently through Photoshop, through more editing stuff. I just been constantly on the grind and stuff like that.
Definitely. As you guys can see, we have our logo back there. Rob actually created that and just learned about in like 2 hours how to create it on what was it, Photoshop?
It was a mix of like DaVinci Resolve and Photoshop.
Yeah.
But
so, I mean, I see the grind, and it's I don't know how to put the right words together, but I guess I appreciate it because you make me want to do the same for myself.
And I think that's what's the beautiful part about the 5 guys of us. And Joel's caption of his Instagram post of you guys working out was really beautiful. It was something along the lines of, if your group of friends doesn't inspire you to be a better you or something, it's not a group of friends or anything. It's a cage.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like in the people in your if the people in your close circle don't inspire you, then you're in a cage.
That part right there. And honestly, these last few months, ever since we've all gotten closer, I would say the last 2 months, because a lot, I think I started talking to you guys in October-ish, roughly around there. But ever since then, it's just been kind of skyrocketing our friendships in a way, especially you and I.
Definitely.
And then especially with me and you now, I feel like our friendship is starting to skyrocket a lot because we're trying to understand each other's humor, which we share a lot in that way. But
You saw me naked.
I saw some stuff. You should see my camera roll right now.
For context, he hit me up and was like, "Hey, dude, like, he hit up all of us and was like, is anyone down to record for a polar plunge?" So me being free, I didn't have anything to do, and I was like, okay. And the whole time recording, I was in this small room with the manager of the gym, one of the workers there, and Rob with his camera just below the waist.
It looked wrong a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm over here taking off my clothes to record myself getting in a polar plunge,
It
and
felt
I
like a
was
little
just.
OnlyFans content. huh?
Dude, I made that
never
joke.
recorded any and never will. But if I've ever been in a scenario where I felt like that, that would have been the scenario right there.
It was definitely a thirst trap. But I mean, he did remarkable work again. It definitely made me look good. But it was one of those moments too. Where I was just like, wow, we just got a lot closer because you recorded me taking off my clothes, hopping in this ice bath for my OnlyFans. Just kidding.
Dude, really quick though, how was that ice bath? Did you feel, the benefits after, or?
Dude, yeah, honestly, yeah, if you guys don't know what a polar plunge is, it's really just like an ice bath. But they have this pool that filters out water and it cools it down for you. It has its own cooling system. And it was actually my first time being in like that type of pool. Like I grew up in Oregon and we have snow water like during the springtime and it's always pretty cold. But as far as like the sensation goes, I honestly feel really cold at first. And there was like the filter was spraying. It was like a jet. It was spraying like straight on my back, colder water. So the whole time I was kind of like, trying to thug it out.
Do you know what the temperature was at?
It wasn't that low, to be honest. And I'm not going to say it because I don't want to embarrass myself. But yeah, Rob remembers. He has it on camera. But as far as, the effects of it go, I do see how it can benefit a lot of people. And when I got out, I actually felt really great. Like I felt wide awake. My body felt like less tense, as ironic as that is, because when you get the shivers, you kind of tense up. But honestly, I just felt really good. Leaving that place and driving home, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm chilling. You know what I mean? It's definitely something that I will do again, and hopefully some of our gyms pick up on the polar plunge trend, because I do think that it has a lot of benefits. And I felt like I don't know, snorted some salts. I was on a good one.
Like today? No.
Oh
We're talking about
gosh.
smelling salts at the gym, just joking around.
Yeah.
And really quick, Valley needs to get their sauna up and running.
Yeah.
I love the sauna, and that's one thing that I've been really missing out on. I'm like, I need to get myself into a sauna. So,
But welcome back. If you guys saw a hard cut real quick, my memory got full. My fault. But where were we?
We were actually taking intermission, and so
Cold plunges. We were talking about cold plunges and
Yeah,
stuff
we
like
were.
that. Well, actually, to dive back into, if you guys don't have a cold plunge, cold showers. Cold showers work a lot. People have said that they're worse than actual cold plunges or ice baths. I don't know how true that is, because it's like having a bunch of cold bullets hitting your body at all times and stuff like that. Because when you sit still in a cold plunge or an ice bath, your body creates this like thermal shield almost and kind of gets used to it. But like if you're constantly moving, or the water's always circulating, something like that. Again, don't quote me on this. It's just going based off memory. I'm not an expert at this stuff. But cold showers are apparently worse than cold plunges and stuff like that.
they have benefits though, don't they?
Oh yeah, it's any sort of cold temperature like reduction of the body has a lot of benefits, such as the cold plunge. You'll probably feel similar effects. Like before I came here to the pod, took a cold shower. I was
Right,
like,
I remember you
yeah,
saying that.
Yeah, I took a cold shower. I used to take a lot of cold showers back then. Then I kind of stopped, and now I'm getting back into them. But there's definitely a lot of benefits. Tightens the skin, a lot of like just different effects. Like just try it out. Don't be a weenie. I'm not gonna curse on the clip, but don't be a weenie. Just take a cold shower. Just water, dude.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I am a huge fan of a hot shower.
Hot showers are
dude,
great.
Dude, it's my guilty
showers
pleasure. I look
are
forward to them.
steamy, like
Oh yeah.
super hot. And I get out and I'm like, oh, I took a really hot shower.
Yeah.
But it's like almost boiling.
Your skin's red, huh? When you get out.
Yes. Yeah.
You're
And
one
I
of
know
those.
it's terrible for my hair. It's terrible for my skin. But there's just times where I'm like, okay, I just need a nice hot shower. I don't know why it sounds like that.
This is an advertisement.
Yeah, if you can relate, you know what's up. The hot showers be hitting different.
Let's jump right back into your, I guess your
Life.
journey.
Journey?
Or your journey. I guess your
Journey.
I wanted to get into, everybody has their idols. So like for me, for lifting, I would say it would be David Blade. For you, for cinematography, who would that be?
A big one. Cinematography / director Christopher Nolan.
Bro, and why did
Immediately.
I?
Yeah, I knew.
Why did I feel like I knew that.
That's some nerd stuff. It's all director talk. I know a lot of people don't like are really into it. They enjoy the art that's created through it, But Christopher Nolan, if you guys don't know who that is, he's a director for Inception, Tenet, the trilogy of the Batman with what's the actor's name? Christopher. No, is it? One of the OG Batman.
Bale.
Christian Bale. There we go. Yeah, Christian Bale.
Oppenheimer.
Interstellar. Those are just phenomenal movies. But just the way he orchestrates the whole like movie, everything about it is very beautiful. On a high level, that's somebody I will look up to for like cinematography director level.
Right.
I'm slowly changing it. I got into camera work from like photography a little bit, changed it to videography, now changed it to just like cinematography, and now what I'm realizing I'm like kind of almost a director in a way. I'm not like, it's not like, oh, I woke up one day I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a director. It's just slowly happening over time. And kind of with that, I was like, for anybody who's out there who's like doesn't know what they're doing, just as long as you're happy, I think your life will slowly adjust to where you want to be and where you're going. Such as myself, I didn't wake up one day, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be filming a podcast, or I'm going to be filming people working out at the gym, I'm going to have fun. Because I genuinely have a fun time when I do that. I'm hanging out with my boys, recording, making great edits, and then I get those dopamine levels when I create a final result, when I see it finally, oh, I did that, I created that, like that's where the dopamine kicks in for like video or like cinematography stuff. And for anybody out there, again, it's like, bro, just like trust the process, go through it, and don't set yourself, oh, in 10 years I'm going to be here. Sure, have those goals, but if you don't have a mindset of kind of where you want to go, just do things that make you happy, and over time you're going to kind of find out where you want to go, because that's what I did. That's kind of what I do with my life.
I believe Christopher Nolan is a perfect example of that, because you may know more than I know about him, but I think you're the one that actually sent me the video about how he kind of got into cinematography, and he didn't take like any classes or anything. He was self-taught, correct?
I think it was a small real estate center, I think.
Right.
My knowledge on Christopher Nolan is still very minimal, but I just look up to him just from his art that he creates.
Right.
But yeah, I believe you are correct. He didn't go to college for it. He just kind of was self-taught over time. And that describes, I'm self-taught on camera work, and hell, if we're this far in a podcast and my editing, it's all on YouTube. Kind of like how you learned how to play a guitar and stuff.
Yeah, all self-taught. I mean, of course I have my dad who's a musician, but I feel like I learned most of my, I guess, instrumental knowledge from YouTube. Mm-hmm. I picked up the guitar and I just, I want to learn this song. So I feel like I've learned how to play instruments, I guess, improperly, because if I were to go somewhere and play and they're like, oh, can you read this or like play off of this sheet? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't know how to do it. But I can, if I hear them play, I can kind of go based off how they're playing. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's like I play by ear. So it's a pro and a con, because I can go somewhere and hear the music and kind of jump into it like improvising. And then whereas, you go and read notes, it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that's, that's a talent in itself. I have a buddy too who he's a singer, plays the piano, and he learned from his dad, but he can't read music. But anything he hears, like a tune, beat, anything, he can remake it. Like, exactly. It was actually pretty astonishing. Mm-hmm. Like, it shook me, and he's somebody that I will always support. And yeah, it was just like one of those things where I was like, wow. That is like a talent in itself, because not most people can hear music and recreate it, and they do need like the notes, etc. But I was like, dude, I wish I could do something like that. You know what I mean?
No, definitely, dude. And I guess from examples from like the person from my stories, from his stories, like to anybody who's out there, like don't wait till like, oh, I'm gonna save up enough money to buy the class or anything like that, bro. Like YouTube is free. I mean, sure, you have to watch like 3 damn ads in the beginning that are like 45 seconds long each. Or something, but like...
Or you could pay for premium.
Yeah. I'm a victim of that.
Same.
It's my college. I treat YouTube as my college. I went to college. I got paid through FastFup, and then I dropped out a year later. Fun fact, my mom didn't know I dropped out of college until a semester later. Oh, wow. So I was kind of on the low. It was funny because over time, when I first dropped out, when I was supposed to be like... So she would start work like at 8 a.m., right? My first class will start at 9 a.m., so during those times, I'd wake up at 8 or 7:30, pretend like I'm getting ready to go to school, to college and stuff like that. But I wouldn't go. Mm-hmm. I'll stay home and play video games.
Really quick, on the topic of a college. Yeah. So when you first jumped into college, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do?
I went from peer pressure from my family. I'm not throwing shade or anything like that, but at that time, college was looked at as very, oh, you have to go to college to be successful. And I think that was just
right.
parents just being like, I want my child to be successful, so I'm gonna do what they, what they hear from other people. Oh, my
Right.
kid went to college. They're just following the trends, which is again, it's not the end of the world that you went to college and you didn't make out of it. It's a life lesson. And again, a lot of parents will push that on their children out of fear that their children may not be successful. So they feel like, let's just do the copy and paste. Oh, their kids went to college, they were successful, or they did okay. So that happened to me, but very stubborn. I think a lot of guys can relate to being stubborn in some sort of way. I was like, I'm not going to keep going to college. This is not what I want. So I dropped out, didn't tell my mom for a week, or not a week, for a semester. And then she found out. She was upset. That's some family stuff for another story. But yeah, drop out of college. Long story.
So,
Yeah.
in your opinion, do you feel like you wasted your time in that whole or did you need to go through that process to get to where you're at now?
I would say yes, because
Yes, it was a waste of time.
yes to both. Yes, it was a waste of time, but yes, I still learned from that time of where I don't want to be. I don't want to show up to a place where I don't want to be.
Gotcha.
And when I learned that and how I felt, because I think a lot of memories you don't learn. You learn how, or a lot of memories you remember how you feel, but you don't remember what you were doing there in a way. Like when I don't remember everything that was going on in class. I don't remember my 4 professors' teacher or their names. I don't remember their names. I just remember how I felt being there. I was like, I don't want to be here. I want to go do something else. I'll go work, blue collar labor or whatever the case is. And now to where we are in life, I think college has become more of an option. There's a lot of different paths. I think they're removing bachelor's degrees and stuff like that from job requirements now, where it's just becoming a little bit more not a requirement is what I'm trying to say. But yes, it was kind of a waste of time to me on 2 different levels. Like physically wasted time being there, but it was worth it for a life lesson to where I don't want to be. So kind of yes to both in that way.
Gotcha. Really quick, did you go to college?
Did you?
No, I actually
did?
didn't. And
And you're doing really well too.
Yeah, I am also a college dropout, and I wanted to add on that as well. Is that I do think there's like a lot of tradition, or it's like peer pressure that parents put on their kids to go to college, because our parents themselves probably didn't even graduate school or go to college, etc. And obviously, like college was probably like different times, right? It was probably a lot different back then. But I do like what you said. Like, it is optional. There are a lot of benefits for people who do go to college. But I mean, we have so much access to the knowledge we need. YouTube, shout out YouTube, love YouTube. In today's generation, that college is not a necessity. I mean, you hear about 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds up to like early 20s becoming millionaires, making thousands a month online, because we're just in that digital age. So I don't necessarily think college is a necessity, but I mean, if you are someone who loves to learn, it's definitely there's their benefits, but you don't need college to be successul. Hence, you're doing really wonderful. I didn't go to college, and I feel like
As
I'm
yourself?
pretty great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty great in life as well. But yeah, I mean, I think like times are changing for sure. But college is also very expensive, and I don't think it's affordable nowadays compared to how it was. And I have friends who are still paying off college debt who are like, and they're not even using their degree. But also, I think a lot of companies are getting smart, because I was reading this book, and it was talking about people who are straight A students in class, but like don't have common sense in the real world.
Or
So
like in the workforce.
yeah, and so when they get into the profession, they're actually flops, even though they were like book smart. And now they're starting to look at people who kind of have average grades, but have like more experience. And In-N-Out, I want to say it's In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A has this business model too, where you don't necessarily always have to buy in, but they grow you from entry level, and you work you all the way up to the role. And
Amazon did that to me.
Yeah.
Shout out Amazon.
Yeah, and now they're letting these people who don't have degrees run businesses, and that's similar to the system that I was in, where like I didn't have to break my back to get $100K to put down on a down payment to get access to $1 million to do this. It's like I know the business in and out because I worked my way up from beginning to finish. You know what I mean? And I think more businesses are starting to implement this in their systems, because they want the right people in the right places doing the right things, and it all starts from people who actually know the business inside and out. You know what I mean?
Starts almost from the bottom, like the seed at the bottom. it kind of just sprouts over time. And as that journey, when you start off from like a level 1 or whatever the case is, I'm not sure how it is from there, but I'm speaking kind of like Amazonian terms. Like you start off from the level 1, loading the box trucks, everything like that. And over time you grow. And as that time you're growing, you're picking up a lot of different things versus an external person who comes into the operation with, oh, I'm just a college, nothing wrong with college again, but, I have my college degrees and all that stuff like that. When you put them into the mix, it's very like they have to learn a whole new operation versus somebody who just kind of sprouted from the seed and blossomed over time and they carry that knowledge with them. So 100% understand what you're saying from there.
Yeah.
Right. I think college can definitely be beneficial when you know what you want to do. So, for example, you want to be a doctor. You're going to go to school for that. Or you want to be an x-ray tech, or you're going into college knowing what you want to do, and it's going to be like, okay, it's going to be 2 years to do this, or 4 years. It's going to be a 4-year program. Whereas for me, because I actually went to college and I got my AA, but I just got it in just a general, I think.
General education?
Just general education,
Yeah,
yeah.
no.
And what did that really do for me?
You could always
Nothing
look back.
I mean,
at
it was
in a way.
definitely a good experience because I played soccer. I got to play soccer because I did that whole process. And then I feel like I didn't really... It was cool because I got to experience different types of classes, but I didn't really, I guess, grasp anything to where I wanted to go. So I guess right now, in the position that I am right now, I'm actually really lucky and I have the job opportunity that I have now. But I feel like I guess at the end of the day, college is going to be beneficial for people that know what they want from the get-go.
Like a lawyer and stuff like
Exactly.
lawyers, doctors. You can't learn that off of YouTube. Nobody would hire you in that aspect.
You can.
But to a certain extent, like legally and everything
Yeah.
like that. Exactly. Like 100% know what you're saying on that. Like college shouldn't be I have to go, but you go blindly. I think college should only be like, again, this is my opinion.
It can definitely be beneficial
Yeah.
too if you go in blindly because you get to experience different types of classes,
different things.
and
Like,
maybe
maybe I
you'll figure
want-
out what you want to do doing that. But
Yeah,
then at the same time, college is expensive.
It
So
is,
it's like,
unless you got FAFSA.
yeah, that is true.
Shout out FAFSA.
But it's also there's just like just like in society, it's like pressure too. You know what I mean? Because the pattern is you graduate high school, go to college, get your degree, get the job that you've always wanted, buy a house, have a family, etc. But one thing that I tell people who are like, well, I'm gonna go to college, I just don't know what to do. I'm like, dude, figure out what you want to do first, like what you're passionate about, what you love, and then go to school for that specifically. Because I think society in general is just changing, right? Like I'll use like NFL or like in the NBA, like you don't necessarily need to go to college anymore in order to like get drafted. Like there's so many people who go play overseas, become pros, and then enter the draft later on in life. But I do think like a lot of people use sports, college for sports.
Exactly.
And then like I don't know, I just know a lot of people who went to college to play sports in hopes that they would get drafted or something, and like they got their degree in communications, which is like no shade to anybody who's done that, but it's just a common theme that I see for athletes because it's like kind of like the easiest degree to get, which allows you the eligibility to play sports. But all that to say, I think there is a shift in society now because we have so many resources, and so the avenues now are more vast than they've ever been. And so you could be like, cool, I could actually do this to do what I want. And you see even like the beauty like world, girls who do go to like a beauty school don't necessarily go to college, but they go to a school for their specific niche, and then they open up their personal
shops and stuff like
businesses.
that.
And I'm like, I know some pretty successful women who didn't go to college. And I say women because like they're literally just my girlfriends. But like, I'm like, cool, that's awesome, because you didn't need to go to like a 4-year university to get to open up your own business. You just needed to know what you were doing, what you're passionate about, and work towards it.
That part. And what I will say, I think it's a generational shift just in general, is that a lot of people sometimes don't get to experience that like that. For example, the women that's youth who did all that stuff, maybe their parents were trying to peer pressure them to go to college and stuff like that. But there's a saying out there is like, don't live your life for your parents' dreams. And I think a lot of that's starting to slowly change because there's a lot more examples out there of people who are successful who never went to college. And now those people became well known and stuff like that. And with that being said, like the children or whoever is trying to be peer pressure to go to college by their parents, they can show their parents, hey, mom, dad, these guys, they didn't go to college, and look at where they're at in life. And I think that's slowly changing over time. Kind of like what we said, college isn't becoming that necessity anymore, that thing, because there's YouTube, there's those schools, there's everything out there.
Definitely. And I feel like another big thing is who you know, because
That part.
and networking, because it's really like there's people that get the degree, but if they don't have their foot in the door, they don't know anybody that's in the position that they want to be in, and you get a person that's kind of not off the streets and doesn't have a degree, but they're knowledgeable in the field, and they know a person in the field. I feel like they'll have a better opportunity to get in without the degree, just because they know the person.
Oh yeah, and I've seen that a lot in my old careers where they would, so like let's say there's 3 people that go into an interview, right? And one person would know, one person knows the manager of the operation that they're interviewing for. They might not be being interviewed by that person specifically, but they know the manager who's going to run the operation. Then they have an outsider, and then they just have somebody who's in the middle, like that outsider, like nobody really knows, he just applied randomly. And then they have like the middle person who kind of is aware, whatever the case is. But let's say they all get interviewed and they all get, like a green check mark as hey, they are fit for the role. Now it's up to the manager of the operation to choose. Well, of course, the manager is going to choose the one that they know because they've seen first-person experience of how they know, or they share the same humor or whatever the case is. So it definitely is about like just networking in general. Just it all depends on who you know in this life. If that makes sense.
And I think it's more of like I would call it security and familiarity. Sorry, that is such a twang.
It happens to me all the time.
But I think people just hire based off what they're familiar with. I mean, if you know somebody, right, who carries a lot of values, you work hard and you apply for a position, I'm more likely to connect with you, right? Filming, if I was like, hey, Rob, can we film this rather than some stranger, maybe. Yeah. But, the chances of you making time for someone is just more familiar and more comfortable. And I would say that's, like, more security. But I do agree, like, nowadays it's it could be just like the people which is an advantage that some people just are blessed with. But
and I know a lot of companies now are doing the hire within. So like if they have a position of a higher position and there's people down here, they'll hire one of the people that are a little, I guess, lower, and they'll have the I guess upper hand versus everybody else that doesn't.
Yeah, and it's also like I think I typically use that system too when I'm promoting like a manager or something, as well as like I try to hire from internally because not only like am I familiar and more secure and I know the people, I'm more willing to stick my neck out for somebody that I know, and at the end of the day, if they fail, then I put my neck out for them, so it's on me. But I really do think it's like also based on like where you're located. Shout out Stockton, I love you. But I wouldn't want to hire someone from Oregon who's never experienced a lot of dangerous
like the culture of Stockton.
Yeah,
our city may not be the well known for this, the best, but I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's low key dangerous. I mean, it's pretty dangerous. And I just mean like, shout out to the people who have stayed here and rep it till they literally probably die. But I respect how many people are ride or die for the city here. And it takes like special blood to live here, and I'm just like very fortunate that I got to experience that, because like I know so many people. I grew up in a farm town in Oregon where everyone's like, oh dude, how's Stockton? I heard. I'm like, bro, chill out. And I think the coolest thing too is like the people I've met here, the opportunities that I've received, the connections that I built with, they're like authentic and dense. Like they're not shallow, deep connections, because the people here are real. Yeah, because everyone's dealt with some stuff. You know what I mean? And so, I didn't mean to say that like in a condescending way, but I do think like that's another factor to consider when you are bringing people on. You want to hire people that know not only the business, but like maybe the city that you're running
like the city's culture, like what to expect versus somebody who's from a different state, who's coming in from like let's say a really You could leave your cars unlocked at night, type
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. But like, you wouldn't want to bring that person in, but you would want to bring somebody probably from the same neighborhood that could handle the heat in that way.
And I do think like I mean, I relate this to like success in a way, because one thing I've always thought about too, because I think there's like this controversy, right, that between culture and like an environment, like everyone's like, oh, if you live in a poor environment, that plays an effect of how successful you are, vice versa. But I grew up in a poor environment, but I had great culture from my family, which taught me more than just like my surroundings. Like they taught me how to like live in that harsh environment and be better off for it. But I've also known people who live in, you know, wealthy families, awesome environment, but are some of the crappiest people I've ever met, or they end up like failing at some capacity. So, you know, I always use Stockton as that example, because I'm like, yeah, the environment may not be everyone's taste, but the culture that I've received and that I've been immersed in is what's kept me here. And I think that's gold in itself. You know what I mean? And so it's cool to like talk about that, because it is very controversial, because they're studying psychology and going to therapy. They're like, well, environment plays a huge role in your development. I'm like, yeah, but culture plays a bigger role in your development, because exactly what I said, like you can live in a poor environment, have rich culture, like rich as in like happy, healthy, and be successful. Or, you know, you can live in a really wealthy environment and then have poor culture and then, you know, probably fall off. And we hear stories like that all the time, like spoiled rich kid does this, or you know, some of the most wealthiest people in the world come from terrible backgrounds, but it's because they had just like awesome culture or drive internally.
And,
you know what I mean?
We look at them like, oh, they have everything, but you know, at the end of the day, are they really happy?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's just like so much that, but don't know how we got on that topic, but that's something that I love about.
But even to like pivot around between conversations, like family culture, like, I mean, something that we all share between the three of us is like God and faith and stuff like that. So out of curiosity, did your family, you said that your family introduced you into faith and God and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So briefly touched base on this in the last pod, but yeah. So my family would go to church out of just like, I would say initially it was just out of obligation, because it made us like feel good. And I knew that they were trying, like, you know, but as a young kid, I was a little bit more reluctant and relentless and kind of a degenerate, because I was just like rebellious.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely rebellious. And it was just an obligation. And eventually over time, like, I started, when I was older and like going to college, I actually started going to a church called the 120, which there was 100 people in the first church. You know what I mean? So I was just going to go to the service, and then I felt like moved to start working for the church, and then I started doing the announcements, and then we started doing like, you know, fun events, and I got baptized, and then
How did that feel, by the way? Because I've yet to be baptized, because I'm a Christian. I feel like it's never the right time to be baptized, but I do want to be baptized one day when I feel like, I don't say it's the right time, but one day I do. But how did that feel for you?
Yeah, I mean, going into it, I mean, there was still like insecurity, all right, because I think there's just a lot of nerves that come with making a big decision, like dedicating your life to the Lord. But it was actually like really wonderful. I'd relate it to like polar plunge, you know.
Really?
First it's a little like tense and scary and might feel a little awkward because everyone's looking at you, but after you get out, it's just like refreshment, rejuvenation. You just feel better.
It's that born again feeling, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. But to be like completely candid, I mean, I've been baptized multiple times, because I got baptized once, and then I was doing really good, fell off, and then, you know, started making poor decisions. And then it wasn't until like I moved back to Stockton, or when I moved to Stockton, that I started attending church again, and felt the need to get baptized again, which I was like, cool, you know, which is, I don't know if that's very common, so it might be very unique to my situation, but I think from my takeaway is like, you know, there are hiccups and there are mistakes made in your relationships and walks with the Lord, because we're not perfect. If we were perfect, we wouldn't really need a belief, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so, yeah, I say that and people look at me, I'm like, yeah, I'm not ashamed of that. Like, I messed up and I fell off, and that's not God's fault. it was my fault. And so I rededicated my life, and then became a youth pastor for a short time, went to ministry school, and got some pretty cool opportunities, traveled to India. And now I still go to church every Wednesday and every Sunday, so I would say, my relationship with the Lord has definitely developed from being an obligation to actually wanting a relationship.
That part right there. And that's something I think maybe that you and I share a similar thing as when I was a kid. My dad did the best to take me. He would force me to go to church as an obligation, because it's part of the family culture in a way. Everybody tries to do their best growing up and stuff like that with the church. It was a Catholic church, but over time he became Christian. And then over time, I think it was like when I finally turned like 17 or 18, I stopped going to church. Not out of choice, just being lazy. You're a teenager or whatever. You're just don't know. It wasn't even 18 because I remember high school I didn't go to church. I was like 13 or 14, something like that. I don't want to sleep in on my Sundays, right? So my dad was like, he's growing up, let him make his choices. He wasn't like, oh, you have to go. But I remember as long as I could remember to like the age of 14, or before high school, middle school even, I would go to church and stuff like that. And then I stopped going, and let's say I stopped going when I was like 14, before high school, right? Or 13, whenever that was. I just stopped going completely. I kind of didn't really pay attention to Jesus. I know he was always there in a way, but over time, I would even say like more than 10 years later is when I actually started to forge a relationship with Jesus. Like I knew of him. You know how everybody knows, like, anybody who is not basically non-atheist knows that there is a God, or Jesus himself, God, is there, but like you're not really giving him your full attention. It's because being a Christian, being a follower of God is a relationship with God. And it's like having a girlfriend or a boyfriend. If you don't take care of that girlfriend or boyfriend, are they going to be in that relationship with you? And probably not if you're not giving them their full attention. But over time, again, stopped going to church when I was 13. I found God. I knew of God all my life, but I really built a relationship with him summer of 2023, last year. So just recently. And a lot of people will sometimes look at me and say, Rob never used to post stuff about Jesus or whatever the case on his Instagram, never really vocal. Yeah. He has a tattoo on the back of his side of neck of a cross and stuff like that. But I think that's the definition of faith, of how fast something like that can change in life, from somebody who was just like very lukewarm of, yeah, I know God's there, but he'll always be there for me, right? And stuff like that. I mean, yeah, he'll always be there for you, but is that how you want to treat a relationship with somebody who loves you so much in that way, of like who's always there for you? And that's when I went through some stuff that's kind of a little personal. I don't want to share because it involves another person, but I found God through a bunch of crappy situations in my life, a lot of failed stages, and I kind of found God through that way. And ever since then, I saw his blessings, and I saw what happens when you kind of reject those blessings, if you're stubborn or if you're too prideful to say like, hey, God's trying to take care of me, but you're like, nah, I did that myself. And then he like really checks you in that way. And I think that's what really like humbled me as a person, because every man, every woman's going to have their pride when it comes to, oh, this is their life, they own it. So, sure, you could own your life and all that stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think your soul, your spirit belongs to Jesus, because that's where that relationship comes from, because Jesus is something spiritual. And you could only have a spiritual relationship with something else that's spiritual. Your physical body, when you die, it's going to be here, but your spirit's going to go with him. And I think over time, through those hard challenges, my spirit became like closer to him through those trials and errors. And it's been a journey from what I could say to where I am now, as in May of last year was, how long ago was that? It was like 7 months? 7 months ago. Completely different mindset, roughly around there. Completely different mindset. 8 months maybe. I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, completely different mindset and spiritual level with God in that way. And you've just been coming in terms with the better relationship with him, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we all kind of have, similar origin stories, I guess you could say. Where you feel like when you're younger, it's more of an obligation. My grandma is very big on her faith, and she's Catholic. So almost every Sunday we'd be going to church. But to me, you're young. You don't really want to do that. You feel like, I know of God, but I can do all these other things. And it's more recently I've just been trying to get into my faith. And it's definitely a process, because I'm a person who likes to question things, and I have a ton of questions. And I look to Rob. I look to you know, wherever I could find it. But, you know, me, I haven't really done my due diligence, and I haven't really, you know, jumped into the Bible. I just started doing it now, but I feel like once I, you know, dive into the Bible and get closer to God, these questions that I have will kind of, I guess, answer themselves. But yeah, how do you guys deal with? I'm sure you guys have questions as well. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, ministry school was definitely really cool, and it was non-denominational, so we learned a bunch of like the gifts, and just like how to form that relationship. Because I mean, one of the topics or one of the services that we had was discussing religion versus relationship. Religion is a practice. Relationship is, you know, love, intentionality, actually knowing someone. Because we all know of stuff, but do we actually know it, feel it, absorb it, and are intentional? But I think as far as like your question goes, I think beginning stages of, you know, developing my relationship with Jesus was insecurity. I was just super insecure. And ask myself, the big question was, am I good enough? Am I going to be accepted? But I think one thing too is like,
Wait, really quick. I remember going with what you said on the George Jenko podcast. He kind of answered that question, and I like how he worded it. So hopefully I don't mess it up. But he said, "Do you?" Hold on, let me think about this really quick. How did he word this? Do you clean yourself before you get in the shower? Is that how it went?
Yeah. No,
you get in the shower to get clean.
It's
To me, that was just like, wow.
yeah.
You can be from, you know, from any, I guess,
Any background almost.
any background.
history.
Exactly.
yeah, well, that's true. And it's like, you know, we wash ourselves clean, you know, we were reborn. And I think a lot of people think they have to make these preparations in order to like just meet with him. But I mean, if you read throughout the Bible, like he chose the people who were getting beaten in the middle of the road, who were sick, gross, dying societies, exiles basically. But their heart and was for him. And I think that's something that a lot of people who, you know, who question becoming a Christian or devoting their life to Jesus is like, yeah, you don't have to make preparation. Like God's not going anywhere, and we feel him there because we're the ones that turn our back on him, and he doesn't turn our back on us. Right. And so I think just having confidence in that, obviously don't abuse that power, right? Because we wouldn't do that to people we love unconditionally. But I think there's this like, there's this hesitation of like, oh, I have questions, so I'm turning. It's like, dude, he loves you and he's gonna welcome you no matter what. But you don't have to be perfect, and it is gonna be like a learn as you go, because you're obviously breaking a lot of bad habits of the flesh, but also, you know, building character spiritually. But I think like one of the coolest things about that is, because we're so scared, we just don't do it because we think we need to. And my buddy Cooper always says this. Shout out my buddy Cooper. He's a youth pastor, but he told me this. He was like, yeah, we think we need the faith of a mountain to move a mustard seed, but we really only need the faith of a mustard seed
To move the mountain.
Yeah, which means like, even with that, like we think we need everything, you know, which we give everything, but all Jesus ever is asking for is just a yes. You know what I mean? As simple as that. And as soon as you can say yes in your heart and with your soul, like that's miraculous in itself. But we don't have to like make all these sacrifices right away or feel like we have all these offerings. We're not I don't know, it's not like Apocalypto.
No, but I know.
You know, they're like, you know, literally sacrifice
Yeah.
yourself. It's so easy. We just have to really just pray about it. And
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the aspect of people think they have to give up all these sins and all these bad things that they're doing in their life to become closer to Jesus. But the reality, the truth is, honestly, get closer with Jesus, and over time you won't want to commit those sins. You're not going to want to do that stuff. And these last 7 months, I used to do a lot of things differently. My humor, my how to think, and everything like that has slowly fallen off. Not because I said, hey, Rob, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to stop doing those things. Like, no, as I developed my relationship with Jesus Christ, I just stopped doing them naturally because I looked at myself almost like with disgust. It's like becoming self-aware nowadays. And I think that's what reading the Bible and getting closer with God is becoming self-aware of the truth. And a lot of people are either too prideful and ignorant to understand that, or they just don't want to because they're ashamed of themselves currently and they think that they can't make a change in their life. In reality, they can make that change.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful part is the slow like evolution or change that people go through in their lives when they become closer to Jesus in that way.
Yeah, and I think also like people are afraid to that they're gonna give up their own rights, like to live for Him. And I would say this like if we're living life for like we can't make the Bible work for us. We have to work for the Bible, right? In that sense, like we can't change it. It's written in stone. If we try to manipulate it into our own like selfish ways, then we're really never gonna reap the reward of getting to know our Father. And so I also think that and this is also like very controversial, that a lot of Christians taint religion for a lot of people and make it fearful. And they're like, oh, you sin or this and that, you will never be accepted, or you're just like an outcast or whatever. And
They
I'm
scare
like,
them away.
yeah, they make them like fear the wrath of God. But I mean, you again just read the Bible and you'll hear and see like God's vision of you. Because if we're created in His perfect image, you know what I mean? Like He has that love for us always. Like we don't need to be society's perfect. We're already His perfect, and all we have to do is say yes. But I call out Christians because I've had moments where I'm like, I don't think God would ever speak to me like that, and I don't think He would ever expect me to be like that. And the church that I did visit one time, which was really cool, welcomed everybody, no matter how you looked, what you wore. He was like, if you want to come here and know Jesus, then walk through those doors, have a good meal, let's pray together, listen to the sermon, and then, you know, obviously let's see how you feel afterwards. But and it was really cool because there were a lot of like lives saved, a lot of homeless people who would walk in and they would feed them and treat them like normal. And I think that's really awesome. Like the school or the church that I went to ministry school at did that. Like they welcome people off the streets. And, you know, I chopped it up with a lot of transients. You know, I'm going to say transients.
What is that exactly?
Transients is just homeless.
Oh, okay.
It's a nicer way of.
It's a big word for Elmo.
Yeah. But I thought that was very humbling. You know what I mean? And it's really cool because you see in Jesus' stories, like of Him doing like the most miraculous stuff with the people who didn't deserve it. But they did in His eyes, just in society, just weren't, you know, the shiny white shoes, fresh suits, had all the money. It was more about your character. You know, the less you have in this world, like the better off you're going to be. And I think when I went to India, that was one thing that I experienced a lot. They didn't have anything, but they were so rich in who they were, their beliefs in God. And I was like, dude, you guys are like so amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I was like, you don't have anything, but you have everything. And I know people who have everything that don't have anything. And so I think that's, you know, really awesome too. And it's something that I'd offer as advice to people who are looking to commit themselves is like, Jesus already knows who you are. He made you. He knows every flaw about you. There's nothing you can hide. All He's doing is waiting for you to turn around and say like, hey, I'm here. And I'm ready to accept you too.
That part right there. And something to kind of like slowly circle back to how you talked about is like, yes, He is always there to accept you. And to kind of talk about Christians again is like nowadays sometimes Christians scare people away more than welcome people to Christianity. Is like I mean, maybe I've done this in the past, but we all learn as we grow in that way. And being a Christian, you're not supposed to go attack somebody for their sins. You're supposed to accept them for their sins because you weren't perfect when you became a Christian. You weren't. I'm pretty sure a lot of people had premarital sex, and that's a sin as well. And there's a lot of sins I could go over that Christians do, but they look at other Christians who are, or other people who aren't Christian, but openly sin. I guess for one example is such as like, this might be a little bit more of a hot topic, hot take, or whatever the case is, but like, for example, like gay people being gay, all that stuff like that. A lot of Christians will go and look at those people and say, oh, you're sinning, oh, you're this. But in reality, that same Christian has probably had premarital sex themselves and they're out there sinning. And then the Bible says, do not judge others in that way, for that's not their role, that's not their responsibility. And it does say that God will judge you on Judgment Day for how you judged others. So if you as a Christian are going out there and, you know, like saying all this stuff towards people who are gay or lesbian or whatever the case is, that's not a good look for you as a Christian. You're not inviting them. That's why Christianity is probably one of the most mocked ones, because Christians go very aggressive towards people who may not follow the same road as Christians go. And that kind of paints a bad picture, which I would like to change over time, because in reality, Christians should be inviting a relationship with God to sinners, because that's what Jesus did. He invited, again, the disciples. They were all sinning. They were all doing bad stuff. But yet, as you said, he's the one who chose the sinners themselves to spread his gospel in that way. And again, I think that just ruins opportunities to invite more people to have a relationship with God himself.
I feel like, well, I guess jumping back onto the topic of, being gay is a sin, I feel like as a Christian, it's hard to say, how do I word this? I can't word it. I don't know how to word it. I think what I'm trying to say is, as a Christian, I don't think you can. Damn, dude, you walking up just threw me off. Hella bad. It died on this?
No, so we're still rolling. Just died on the monitor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're gonna probably have to cut.
Yeah,
right when you go to-
I'm so serious.
Let me try to think about what I was trying.
If you're gonna do that,
Yeah.
check some stuff.
Well, Javi's thinking, I did have something that resonated with me. I think, like, I know gay's the topic that we're talking about, being gay, right? Or queer, LGBTQ community. I think in that, changing people doesn't save people. Saving people changes people. And I just mean, like, yeah, they're the people that you see online, the Christians that you see yelling at people saying, you're a sinner and all this, like, I would get defensive in general if I heard someone speaking to me about that. Like, it doesn't matter what topic it is, but one thing that we learned is, like, you don't know everyone's story, right? And who are you to have the power to change somebody? Your goal is to always try to save somebody. And that's by telling people, like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, however scared you are, like, Jesus loves you and he wants you to be a part of, like, his kingdom in heaven. And once you are saved, like, rejoice, and then you'll see change happen. But I do think people get it backwards, where they're like, no, I have to change you first in order for you to be saved. It's like, no, who are you to do any of that? That's not your job here. If we have the Holy Spirit inside of us, then I think our Father would want to save their kids, not change them and then force them to be something they don't want to be or do. Or I think we're all rebellious in nature. I mean, humans in general. That's why we get defensive, you know what I mean? Or apologize for offending people. But I think that's something that was super powerful. And we would go out and, like, we'd get words, or, like, we'd go out and just pray for random people all the time. And it was, like, so miraculous just to meet people where they're at first, and then talk about the gifts of God and, like, the words of affirmation that we would have for them, or spiritual gifts, like words. And yeah, it was really cool. But I have seen people also, like, try to change people right away, and I'm like, dude, I'm an adult, and trying to change me, like, that's kind of impossible, because I'm gonna get defensive, and you want it to be easy. When you become friends, you get to know someone first, right, before you form that relationship. And I guarantee you that once that trust is built, then we can, like, have some conversations. But if I just attack you and, like, hey, you're my friend, even though you're a stranger, you're probably gonna be like, dude, who are you?
And I think that's what ruins relationships in general, like, where you don't have the opportunity to build a relationship. Like, for example, you and I, how, again, our relationship started off at the gym. We got to know each other. The podcast stuff came. And then I was able to help you out with some, Jesus-related things. And I think if, like, the first conversation that we ever talked about was Jesus, and I came off, the strong stuff, it would have kind of, like, this guy's some lunatic, this and nut. Yeah, in a way. But in reality, I think we might be a perfect example what John's talking about, where that friendship first starts and that brotherhood is born through Christ in that way. And I think a lot of my, what I'm starting to realize is a lot of my new friendships, like for you guys' example, are being born through Christ, the followers of Christ. That, like, I think a lot of Christians nowadays may struggle trying to find new friendships out there, because we may not live that party lifestyle. We may not live all these, like, crazy lifestyles that a lot of people live, who, it's okay to party if you're Christian and stuff like that. It just depends what you're doing, of course. There's different forms of partying.
Definitely.
But I think that one thing I do realize is with both you guys, for, followers of Christ, is, like, that brotherhood, that friendship is growing really rapidly, because I trust you. I genuinely trust you guys, even though I've known you guys probably max maybe 4 months, probably. Right. If I'm really, October, when I start to know you guys, November, I got to know you guys a little bit better. December and January are here now. It's like, I trust these guys. And again, we're starting something beautiful, like a podcast or whatnot. And it's all started off with friendship and grew through God in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Really quick on the topic of faith, and I feel like you guys are more knowledgeable than I am because I'm just starting my journey. I'm gonna jump on the other side really quick. So this is a question that I struggled with before, and I still kind of question it. But and it's a question for both of you guys. I would, and I know a lot of probably our audience members probably have the same question too. You know, the Bible has been written, you know, over and over countless times. So how do we know that the words haven't been changed and the stories haven't been changed? And that's one thing that I've struggled with, and I'm sure a lot of our audience members may have the same question. So I'd like to hear your guys' response or answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, this question was always very like challenging to explain because I would say if you haven't committed, you won't really know because it's really like a sensation that you feel like when you finally hear like God speaking to you or have like a miraculous moment in your life, you won't really believe it. And I think this will help explain this a little further. Most people need to see something before they believe something. But
Exactly.
in
That's
the Bible,
what I struggled with.
yeah, but Jesus wants you to believe in him first before you see his miracles. So it is going to be a challenge for people who are skeptical because they're like, well, the Bible has been changed. Yeah, everything in history has been written by someone way older than us, and we're taught it at school. The world could be round, flat, triangle, whatever, but
Exactly.
unless we go to space, we firsthand will never know. Like, we're literally taught everything that these books have, and we're supposed to believe that it's reality. But with the Bible, it's like, cool. It contradicts our beliefs because, like, we just have trust issues in general. Society just has trust issues. Like, when you get in a relationship, it's like, you have to earn my trust. I'm like, no, like, I'm going to give them my trust until they break
it or
Into-
something.
yeah,
not
because of
trusting.
who I am, though. Because I am like, cool, they didn't do anything wrong to me. Like, but everyone gets in this mindset of like, oh, they have to earn it. And it's like, no, dude, like, if you're so confident in the position that you're in and with your faith, like, you shouldn't make people earn it. And I tell people this is my favorite quote, but I got this from an old friend as well. But she says, like, I don't want to make people work for my love. I want to work from a place of love. Meaning, like, because of how statured I am, like in my faith, my emotions, my identity, I have a big enough heart to love people even if they don't deserve it. You know, and I think family members are a good example of that. Like, I have plenty of family members who I will never like speak to again, but I will always love them. But that doesn't necessarily mean they need to be in my life. And I would say that, like, faith,
Amen.
yeah, I would say faith in that way is pretty, will come across very challenging because that is the number one question is like, okay, how do I need to see a miracle like this, and I need to see this and this and this. It's like, bro, like, God is never going to let you see anything until you first believe in him. Right. And it would go similar to, like, you know, our podcast or anybody who's ever had a dream that they wanted to fulfill. Like, you're not going to see the money. You're not going to see the revenue. You're not going to see the progress. As soon as you start, like, you got to believe in the things that you're doing in order to reap the reward of your success, or hard work. And I would, again, use that as an example for, you know, anybody who's questioning, like, is the word real? It's like, cool, like, you're asking the wrong question here. Like, do you actually believe in God? And is that what you struggle with? Because if that is it, you're never going to see the fruits of his labor or his gifts unless you fully commit, and then things will start to happen miraculously. And I was one of those people too. And I'm speaking off my own testimonies. Like, I was like, I want to see him do this, or I want to see him heal the blind, or I want to, you know, see him grow limbs. And it wasn't until, like, I fully gave myself to him that I actually, like, saw miracles that I wouldn't explain. And one of them being in India, which was phenomenal. But we traveled like 3 hours outside the city, and we met up with this lady who would take the bus 3 hours to go to the church service. And when we were there praying for her sons who were, like, possessed, random people just showed up at the door, and they're like, we felt that we were supposed to come here. Like, who are you guys? And these were people that we did not meet, had no idea that we were there. Like, literally random people who were just like, I felt God told me to come here because this is where he is. And we were like, dude, we're in a little sod house, literally made out of hay and mud in the sticks, bro. And these people walked an hour because they felt God told them to go to that location. And another testimony was like, there's this woman who, young girl, she was like sexually abused. And she was possessed, and she just didn't believe in faith at all. Like, and she lived in the slums too. And like, dude, this girl was like evil looking. Like, you look at her and you just know that she wasn't there. And we were praying for her, and she was like getting like, it was basically like an exorcism. I mean, you know, getting really angry and frustrated, and was pushing us away. And I just felt in that moment, Jesus just be like, dude, you know what you need to do? Give her a hug. Just hug her. And this is hugging a random lady that I've never met in India who was sexually abused by her own family, and hates guys, you know, and he's like, give her a hug. And dude, as soon as I hugged her, bro, just boom, I just felt this huge sensation like I got hit by a lightning bolt, and this girl just bawled, bro. Like, made me cry because I don't know what happened, but I just felt like I was supposed to hug her, and Jesus just did his magic. And dude, it was honestly one of the most astonishing, powerful testimonies I have, because this girl literally, like, the light in her eyes finally came back, and she was like, what'd you do? Like, I just felt everything shed off of me. Like, it was amazing, bro. Honestly, like, it makes me kind of emotional when I talk about it, because it was just so miraculous in that moment, and just the way that I felt being I guess like a filter, I guess, you know, for him to love his daughter was absolutely crazy, bro. It was really freaking powerful.
That's beautiful. And I think that comes to a more closer thing where it's like your circle matters of friends, because somewhere in the Bible, I could be completely wrong. Maybe you could help me out. It does say that Jesus was able to cure somebody just for the friend having that faith. Mm-hmm. And I believe in that moment, because your relationship with God, you were able to help that young lady out with whatever she was going through in that aspect. And I think that's how powerful God can be. Just by one person having faith can affect somebody else's life that probably has no faith. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think your circle matters in a group of friends versus the people that you have in your life. Mm-hmm. And again, that's a very beautiful story right there.
Yeah, no, dude, it was.
That's actually insane. Like, wow.
No, dude, it really was. And this is coming from somebody who just had got baptized, decided to do ministry school, fly across the country to a third world country. And literally, I was in the slums, bro. Like, you're talking like, it was a culture shock to me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, after hearing her story and the interpreter being like, this is what she went through, I was like, there is no way we're going to be able to save this girl, bro. Like, messing with idols and all this stuff. And literally, I was just like, we were all praying, and we're there for like an hour, and it's hot, and it's like muggy, and we're all just kind of tired. And yeah, it was just like one weird little whisper of like, I need you to give her a hug for me. And it was just like, what? Like, literally, I questioned it too. I literally hesitated. And then I was like...
Was it like a vision in your head and your heart type of thing? Or was it more like a voice?
It was definitely a voice. Yeah, it was just, I was praying, and I was praying in tongues, and I just heard, yeah, it was like clear as day. Just give her a hug.
How do you know, like...
It sounds like your own voice, to be honest. Yeah. Like, it sounds like your conscience.
And how do you differentiate?
So I would say, like, do you know how in cartoons how like they have like a little, like a devil on the left shoulder and the Jesus on the right shoulder, and they both look identical? I think just picture like that almost. Maybe it sounds a little bit off, but like just picture like, you know, it sounds like your voice because it is you from the heart.
Right. But
and
I think what I'm trying to say is like, how do you know that it's not, you know,
your own voice
saying it versus?
Because I would not have touched her. If like at all, just like carrying like the full story, and I abbreviated it for
privacy reasons.
Yeah, privacy reasons, because I don't want to expose her. But yeah, it was pretty bad what she went through, bro. And I was just like, she just hates men, and it was like really off-putting that I just hear him say, dude, I need you to give her a hug for me.
Wow.
Because I was like, I don't even, like, she was mad because we were praying over her. Like, she was getting hot, like a demon reacting, basically. And I was honestly scared. And when I heard that, I was like, are you sure? I questioned it in my own head. I was like, are you sure? And I just felt obligated to do it. And so I asked the interpreter, I was like, hey, dude, like, this is going to sound really freaking weird, but I need you to ask her if I can give her a hug. And she said no, like from the jump. She was like, no. Like she just shook her head, and then they were like yelling at each other. And I was just like, I need to give her a hug and I can't leave until I do. And he was like, hey, like, you know, and so like, even when I went to go put my arms around her, like she like pushed and I literally was like, I have to do it, you know? And it wasn't until like I clasped her arms that I just felt peace. Literally, like, that's the best way to describe it. Like, a sigh of relief, peace just like released, and even I felt comforted by it. And I was just kind of like, whoa, I felt lightheaded. And this girl, dude, was just bawling, and then I started bawling, and then everyone started bawling because they just felt that like love just rain over her. And yeah, like you hear stories like this all the time, and people are like, oh, you know, how exaggerated is that, you know? But it's like, I was one of those people too who questioned a lot because I didn't believe that, like, God's miracles until I saw it myself. But that was one moment. That whole trip was wonderful. But that was one testimony that will always stick with me. And just the feeling that I had, I was like, I haven't felt anything like that rush over me in a long time. But just to see the girl prior to me hugging her and after me hugging her, I was like, dude, she literally just got touched by God.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, when I tell people that, they're like, ooh, like, you know, that gave me the chills.
That gave me the chills. I'm like, what?
Yeah, bro. It literally was one of those moments where I literally was like, all right, you got me, dude. Like, I can't question you anymore because the way I felt and the way that I seen her feel, and just like everybody in the room was just so moved. Like, literally the whole group, even like, you know, her family, because she lived with her aunt, and then our interpreter were just like, you know, and that's coming from people who believe in idols, and being a Christian in India is illegal. They could shoot you, arrest you.
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
whatever you want. So we had to pretend we were tourists, and like we even hire like a tour guide, so that we acted the part and like go do all these things. And our church was actually in like a secret basement or secret attics or secret like trenches, basically. Yeah, like it was really crazy. And we stood out, you know, bright as day because I'm like 6'1" walking
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there.
you're different from the
Yeah,
culture.
Yeah, everyone there is like 5'2", 5'1", but nonetheless, like the point there was like we went to a country where Christianity is frowned upon by the dictator, risking our lives, but like seeing the lives saved made everything just feel so silly. Yeah, no, and it was wonderful. And yeah, again, like I just was very grateful for being a part of that miracle. But like I said, when I tell people, they're like, you know, or they're like, ah. But again, I was one of those people who was like, I need to see something. I have to see it, or I would never feel that, or I don't believe that. And it wasn't until that moment that I was like, heard him say like, dude, I need you to give her a hug for me, that I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And just, again, yeah, the sensation and just feeling his presence and that peace just reign over all of us. I was just like, wow. But those were two like great testimonies. And I love the one too where they're just like, I felt like God told me to come here. And we're like, dude, we drove 3 hours away out of a city. You walked an hour from wherever you, Timbuktu, to be in this house somehow at the time that we're here because you heard God tell you to come here and to pray for you. Like, that's crazy. But yeah, so miracles like that are unexplainable, and I can only share that testimony in hopes that, you know, it touches somebody in the right way. But all that to say, skepticism in your question, I would say, like, if you are questioning those things, you need to first change your perception of like, you need to believe before you can see, because if you only want to see before you believe, you're never going to see anything or feel anything. And so
What would be the aspect of is it walk by faith, not by sight, in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's other ways to interpret that too. You gotta, you know, dive in blindly or dive in head first. And that's just like, a testament to your faith. You know what I mean? But demonstrating that faith and committing to that faith is so much easier than people expect. It's really just like, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready. I know you've been here this whole time. My life is yours. Yeah. And you'll just start to see things happen. And speaking from my own testimony, it was really wonderful, and it's still really wonderful. And like, there are still miracles that happen in my life where I'm like, I laugh sometimes, dude. Like, I would just giggle because I'm like, you did that. You know what I mean? Because
That part right there, yeah.
Yeah, coincidences. But I mean, if you always look at life as a coincidence or things just happen, like, dude, like, like, believe in something. You know what I mean? Like, but if you always rely on like the universe putting things into place, it's like, yeah, but there's just some things you can't explain, and they just happen in His time. You know what I mean? But I have moments like that, just looking at my son or like being at church, where I'm like, damn, I really just needed to hear that. You know what I mean? And it comes from my friends, or like sometimes like I just have people check in, or even seeing my son in moments where I'm just like dragging booty, and I'm just like, dude, like, I really just needed that today. And I mean, finances happens too, and in moments when I was broke, it was like there was always something that would happen. Like, he would just provide, and I was like, whoa, like something literally would happen financially to me that I was like, huh, okay. But nonetheless, I guess, yeah, my advice to you is like, it's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to have questions. But if you want to see, you have to believe first. And that just starts within your heart, and stop using your mind. Because our mind is our biggest enemy.
Right. And with that being said, let me bring up another question. And I believe we spoke about this not too long ago. It was a question in regards to, so say hypothetically, there's a child that's born out of reach of civilization and whatnot, doesn't have any knowledge of God. Since he had no belief in God, is technically supposed to go to hell, correct? And he's going to be in the same spot as these murderers, these rapists, all these people that have done these things, and whereas I guess an innocent child is going to be put in that same position, technically speaking. Is that correct?
So I think it would be more so he weighs the heart, right, of what we generally do from the purity of our heart.
Yeah.
And our intellect of humans, it's like our brains are so small, and we look at the world as like, wow, like this is so great. This is, I think, from the George Janko and Cliff podcast that we've listened to, where it's like, when we look at the world, it's like, wow, did we really come from monkeys? Like, you have to have that thought process, like evolution, yeah. And some people will cross convert the Big Bang Theory as in actually the creation of life, when because God's snapped his fingers, Big Bang aspect, where that was a creation of life possibly. But anyways, like we look at life as like that. Like, God created life, God created everything, and I think when that person who's born out of reach from like a relationship with Jesus, he or she is gonna look at that world as in like there has to be something bigger than me in that way, where you have that faith of there is something much bigger than you. You may not be able to know what it is due to your lack of knowledge, and that's not your fault. Like, that person is out there just rejecting it, just due to the lack of tools that they have, and it's not their fault. But I think at the end of the day, when their death comes, time to die in a way, if that sounds weird, I think God will just weigh their heart if they were a good person or a bad person.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
I would weigh it based on sin, and I love where he's going. I don't mean to cut you off, but one thing too that is like super important is that God gave humans free will. And so I hear this a lot too, because when I was a youth pastor and when I was out doing outreach, people would be like, well, my son died or my daughter died. Like, I blame God for that. It's like, no, how you feel, God feels that way 10 times more. You know what I mean? And it's never his intentions for anything bad to happen to us. Like, I'd be so devastated if anything were to happen to my son. If he fell down and scraped his knee, I would be devastated. You know what I mean? And the same love and care that we have in those moments is the same that he has for us. But, life is life and things happen, but it's not always in his grand design. He designed us to have free will and to live a life fruitfully. But at the end of the day, he does want us to choose him, and it
Right.
can't be forced. You know
So
what I mean?
okay, but with that free will, I guess you can question, all these other people that have different faiths, such as Buddhism or
Other faiths.
other faiths, all the other faiths, and they believe that theirs is the right one. So at the end of the day, where are they going to end up? Because we believe
Yeah.
that our faith is the correct one, whereas they believe theirs is the correct one. So it's like, okay, well, if ours is correct, where are they going to end up? Are they going to end up in heaven or hell? Or how does that work? Because, in their beliefs, they're like, no, you guys are going to be going to, you guys don't believe what we believe, so you guys aren't going to be going.
It's the you're right. You're wrong. We're right from every point of view. From Christians looking at Muslims, or I'm not sure. Again, that might come off completely wrong, but Christians looking at other religions, or religions looking at other Christians. Like, oh, we're right. You guys are wrong. You guys are gonna go burn in damnation. We're gonna go to eternity, or whatever the case is. So I completely know what you're coming from.
Is that where you're saying God is going to weigh the heart? Well, see, that's where it gets confusing to me, because it's a different belief system that they have. And it's like,
that part I could strongly say I don't like. I haven't learned enough to give a solid answer that I could stand by. But I think at the end of the day, God will weigh our heart at the end of the day, because no matter what you... So it's contradictory of what I'm saying, because it also says, do not worship any other saints, for I am a jealous God, and all this other stuff. Do not worship money and all that stuff.
But I think like your question about the conflict between different religions and who's right and who's wrong, it's not really us to judge. Honestly, at the end of the day, like, they're going to meet their judgment when they meet their maker at the gates of heaven, right? And so I would just feel confident that Jesus, again, is going to weigh the heart and make the right decision based off of how much he loves somebody. But my example for that too would be like, I use dating because I just went on a date and it wasn't the greatest, right? But the example of that would be, you go on a date and you really fall for this person, but they don't fall for you. Would you wish them the worst? No. Exactly. It just didn't work out. And they made their own choices, but you're not going to ridicule them or wish damnation on them because they didn't choose you. But to contradict that, if they did choose you, though, right, you would feel so much better about it, and you would like give them everything, say that's like your future wife or everything that you've ever wanted. Right. God has that same mindset and that same heart. Like, I want you to choose me, and I'm here, and my hopes are high that you will. But if you walk away from me, it's gonna crush me internally. But that free will comes in the fact where he's not gonna force you into a relationship. He's gonna want you to choose him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
It's just like how I guess George Janko said too. If your religion is right, then pray for me that I'm gonna go. Is that how you?
Oh yeah. It went something along the lines of, I'll pray to my God, you pray to your God, and we'll both pray to our gods. Talking about let that person realize that something along the line of like, I don't want to say in a rude way, because I'm going based off memory. Don't butcher me or anything like that. But essentially what you're praying for to your God is that you pray for them to come closer to their God. Correct. And to whichever God is real, that's the God that will respond appropriately, since, again, there could only be one God, and it's Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Yeah. But yeah, kind of a little bit choppy from memory.
But it's still free will. He wants you to experience, your own false, I would say, entities' desires on your own. You know what I mean? Like, he's not gonna be like, yeah, their religion's fake or their God is fake. It's like, okay, cool. Like, you want to experiment? Like, at the end of the day, we'll see who's real. Which is like him standing on business. But
I mean, he's not wrong. Yeah,
it's not wrong. Like, I mean, Old Testament, he is like a God. Like, we should fear God. Yeah, God fearing. But I think like in that too, like we tend to forget his grace and like that free will aspect. And I keep saying free will because like we have the right to make our own decisions. But I mean, just like you would want in your wife, because like once you get to the bride, because in the Bible it mentions the bride, and that's the relationship we want with Jesus, is that you want them to choose you forever, through sickness and health, through ups and downs, etc. And that's exactly how he yearns for you. Is like he wants you to choose him ultimately, and wants you to give him the rest of your life. But again, it's not going to be forced, even though he could probably do it. But again, that takes
wouldn't
away
be
from
organic.
It's not pure, it's not real. So I would say, yeah, I mean, if you do decide to, take a different path and find out on your own terms, then, be my guest. But just know that the real ones at the end of the day are going to stand tall and they welcome you back when you make your way back,
Definitely. Well, with that being said, Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. We can ramble on about this topic, in the next pod if you guys want to hear about it more. So go ahead and let us know down in the comments, and go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe, and
Follow.
We'll see y'all in the next one.
Yep.
Adios.
Adios.
Why are we saying the same thing? Adios.